Welcome back. And let's start immediately. We do have a lot of questions, but they are going, inshallah, all to be answered by our expert, by our dear guest live here in the studio, Dr. Sayyid Al-Kholy, former Dean of the Faculty of Commerce at Ain Shams University and our economic expert. Thank you very much for being with us, sir.
It's my pleasure.
And we are going to start, as I said, we do have a lot of questions, but starting with this main statement which was released by Minister of Finance, Dr. Muhammad Maid, regarding the Egyptian economy, as he said that it was doubled 3 times in the past 6 years. First of all, of course, these are some great news and we are going to discuss them and in details, but what are the main reasons? Is it the reform program which started years ago, since November 2016? Is it the mega projects? Is it the new Suez Canal? Is it the way we are dealing with our economy? Is it including mega projects and SMEs in the same time? What? Or it's a combination of all, and if you are going to prioritize, which comes first?
Let me say it's a combination of all of this factor you mentioned. Remember, we went through basically 2 revolutions in 2011, and after that was when President Sisi became in power. The deficit in Egypt was in a negative side.
It was hilarious.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And of course, many of the business left Egypt. Many multinational company left Egypt. And when we started in 2014, when the government developed Egypt Vision 2030, we start to look for all factors which it can help to improve the economy of Egypt. And I believe the statistics, if it's issued by the Minister of Finance, it should be true, because the best that government, which was Mustafa Mabouli and Sharif Ismail at that time, was Dr. Sharif Ismail, God bless his health. During that time, the economy was declining in Egypt, and we worked hard, and we worked in all different dimensions of economical dimension, in agriculture, in industry, in tourism, in education, in healthcare, through what we call it as Egypt Vision 2030. And we took in our consideration what factor we should really develop. So we started with what we can do in order to bring foreign direct investment to Egypt. The mega project started with a huge infrastructure in terms of roads, tunnel, bridges, and so on, which is a major component for attracting foreign direct investment.
Amen.
Another mega project, which is the power supply. When foreign direct investment come to invest in Egypt, they need extensive power supply, and we have that done in 2014, 2016. Of course, with the discovery of gas in Mediterranean Sea, Zohr, which is bring Egypt to a different side in the direction of
being
economic
an energy
development.
hub.
Absolutely. Having an Egyptian oil hub for gas in Egypt. And of course, with the new investment, foreign direct investment in Port Said, for example, Egypt will be the industrial hub for Africa, for Arab country, for European country. With the COVID-19, which we suffered from it for 2 years, and recently we have the Russian-Ukrainian war, it really affected the supply chain and the logistic. Not only for Egypt, it's all for all over the world.
Yes.
So the fear we see in TV, when we see what happened in Europe with the economic decline.
We are going to discuss this because I would like to know from you, sir, whether we should have all these fears. I mean, the statistics are saying very good news. For example, during the fiscal year 2021-2022, Egypt budget deficit decreased to 6.1% compared to 13%, but back in the fiscal year 2012-2013.
Yes.
if it was not the COVID-19 issue and this Ukrainian-Russian war, the case would be much better than that. But of course, thank God. But regarding this, the coming stage, of course, we should double our efforts. But should we have these fears the whole world are speaking about, or till the moment, even as a developing country, we are in a better position?
It's a stereotype where when we, or our audience, or all people in Egypt see the suffering of European country, for American, for Asian country, they start to transfer fear to the Egyptian people. But let me say one thing. As you mentioned, 2012, it was the deficit, it was in a bad shape, and we tripled the growth by 3 times, which is a very good news, which is right, because before the pandemic or COVID-19, the growth rate in Egypt was close to 7%.
Yeah.
Remember, with all international indicators, with World Bank, International Monetary Fund, Fitch, and S&P, all
Kholy,
that shows
it, yes.
a positive side for economic development in Egypt, where all country around us, it was in a negative side. That is the good news. Of course, the government now, where they launched the participation and the partnership with private business in order to run the show, not only the government, because we need all parties to participate in economic development. Let me go back for the supply chain, which affected. We depend on raw material from abroad, and this with the supply chain affected and logistic affected, we started to have a really a problem for depending on foreign supply. And President Sisi, as you mentioned, a year ago, he said we should really focus on made in Egypt. We should make most of our necessity needs here in Egypt.
And to instill and localize many industries and industries which are, let's say, whether brand new for us or unfortunately they were just flourishing maybe 50 or 60 years ago, but now they are facing some problems. Now, inshallah, the case is going to be totally different with the furniture in Damietta, for example,
Absolutely.
with the pharmaceutical city, with I want to mention also in Al Mahalla Al Kubra, the textile industry. We are going to, inshallah, to witness huge leaps in such industries. And this is going to be reflected, if you permit me to mention, with the unemployment rate, because I have some other statistics. In June 2022, Egypt's unemployment rate retreated to 7.2% with 826,000 job opportunities provided. Still not enough?
Remember, the unemployment rate, it's below 7% right now, which compared with other countries, it is a huge development. Remember, when we attract more foreign direct investment, when we attract more private institution to work hand in hand with the governmental institution, it will be able to reinvent the industry, bring a know-how, new technology to our industrial sector and the agriculture sectors. And that is when this industry come, when they open and when they start to operate here in Egypt, in Port Said, for example, and many industrial area, they hire more people. Remember, we always say what really distinct Egypt from any other country. We have location,
unique geographical location.
We have a workforce. We are the cheapest workforce in the area, where that is our competitive advantage, which we can attract more foreign direct investment. They hire more people, therefore the unemployment rate will go down, and at the same time we can improve the quality of life of Egyptian people. That is in industrial sector. I
do have 2 more questions regarding the industrial sector, sir, if you permit me. Regarding, as I mentioned, some of the industries were flourishing in the 60s, for example, like the automobile industries, for example. When we saw the word Al-Nasr, this was some of the public companies, and now they are going to be back on track with the presidential directives to instill such heavy industries, which is going, inshallah, to attract and to employ thousands, if not tens of thousands of youth in these kinds of industries. In your opinion, is it more important to focus on heavy industries, or the SMEs should be on equal foot?
Absolutely. Most of the economy worldwide, even in the States, their economy depends by 80% in a small and intermediate business. When we talk about mega project, we don't forget about small and intermediate. We should have all different sector, and this small and intermediate industry or business, it should be what we call it as a feeding industry.
Yeah.
Feeding industry, it means where certain component we can give it to small and intermediate business in order to feed the mega project and heavy industry, as you
open new horizons.
Absolutely.
For startups and young entrepreneurs.
And remember, when President Sisi visited Poland and Hungary and all of this country and Germany, they made a memorandum of understanding for heavy industry.
This is it. This is what I wanted to talk about, that if we were witnessing such flourishing decades in, for example, the automobile industry, we can do this again and again, but with more modern techniques and with a strategic partnership with the heavyweight names in such an industry. True?
Absolutely. We are working on that, remember. I remember before 2010, it was a feasibility study for bringing back Nasr automotive and so on, where the feasibility study, it says we don't have enough demand for Egyptian car, so we should forget about it. But we revisited that. We talked about the 60 when the flourishing of industrial base in Egypt. We had a problem, maintenance. We didn't maintain, we didn't upgrade the technology of heavy industry, and it declined. Remember, now we're doing a lot of work now in Al Mahalla Kubra, because one of the competitive advantage of textile industry for Egyptian, it is we are distinct in terms of our cotton, where it's simply
our cotton linen. By the way, we do have a lot of potentials, and my second question and last question regarding the industrial issue, because this is a very important sector which we should focus on with the strategic partnership with other countries. In many occasions, when President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi visit any country, and for example, also Prime Minister Dr. Mustafa Madbouli was in Tunisia attending and on behalf of the President addressing TICAD. And he had via video conference a meeting with his Japanese counterpart, Fumio Kishida. And they spoke about the Japanese industrial zone in the Suez Canal area. This is going to be one of many, in addition to the Russian, the Chinese, you name it. How do you see having industrial zones belonging to other countries here in Egypt, and particularly in this very unique geographic location, the Suez Canal zone, and how it's going to be a win-win situation, whether for us or the other countries?
That's what we call it as a strategic alliance. It's not a Japanese owned, no. It is a strategic alliance between Egyptian government and Russian government. It's a strategic alliance between Egyptian government and Chinese government, and recently a strategic alliance between Egyptian government and Japanese government. And that's what we call a strategic alliance. We have the location, we have the land, we have the workforce, they have the technology, they have the know-how. We can really build alliance together in order to, they are benefiting, and it's a win-win strategy. Egypt win by employing a lot of people in this, you said tens of thousands of people. No, it is hundreds of thousands of people will be able to participate in this industry. My prediction for the future, I know it's against the odd, Egypt, it will be, within the next 2 years, it will be in a different place in the world map in terms of industrial sector, in terms of agriculture sector. Remember, the Russian-Ukrainian war affected the food supply worldwide. we didn't really face the same problem here in Egypt. And of course, there is a negative campaign. The government trying to change, and President Sisi working very hard, working day and night in order to make the change in terms of agriculture, industry, and all different sectors in Egypt. And there is also resistance to this change from certain group. Me and you know what they want Egypt to be. But in the future, my
the
prediction...
president said it more than once. Of course, the force or the power of evil, the evil party is going to be there. But inshallah, they are not going to hinder Egypt from reaching the utmost and biggest places ever, because we are on the right track and we are heading to the new republic, and nothing is going to hinder this from happening.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Thank you very much, sir, for mentioning this. But let's talk practically on another side of the coin, to the agricultural issue, and how it's really one of the most important factors of reaching this. With the president, with the top executives and top officials speaking all the time about the importance of cultivating what we eat, because this is going to enable us to be in another position. Speaking about Tushka, about the new delta, about the reclamation of more than 2 million fadans, how do you see this as part and parcel of our future at large, and of our strategy to maintain or to guarantee a better future for the coming generations, not only for us today, but for Egypt or for the Egyptians for years, not for years, for decades or even centuries to come?
Remember, the government strategy in the few years is to increase the land for new type of irrigation, new type of food supply for in terms of vegetables and fruits and so on, and with not only hundreds of thousands of acres but millions of acres, they started to develop and make it productive with the new technology in agriculture. And that is doubled or tripled the productivity rate for the land of Egypt. Remember, with the all different rumors we have with Ethiopian dam and so on, we're still using, and that's the efficiency. We reused our water supply. We are managing our water resources here in Egypt. Not only in the area of Delta or in Toshga and so on, in many different places where agriculture tripled the productivity and the production rate in this area. And if you take a look at all news, we see it in international TV, where most of the world suffer from food supply. We have excess capacity of food supply.
Thank God. For
the next eight months. We are in safe haven right now. Remember, I am not saying that because I'm Egyptian, but I really have friends from the Gulf, from the States come to visit, and they see Egypt. It's different in every time they come to Egypt. They see different Egypt, and they will see it more and more in the next 2 years. And I want to really make sure for our audience, but we have to be patient. We have to really
and we have to know that there are obstacles on the way.
President.
It's not a rosy life, of course. But you said
Sure.
You said something which is very touchy. I'm saying this not only not because I am Egyptian. I am saying that because I am Egyptian, thinking on scientific basis and also believing in God. I am a Copt, and a Copt meaning I am an Egyptian. ادخلوها بسلام آمنين. Enter Egypt, you are gonna be totally safe and secured. And Mubarak Sha'bi Misr, God bless the Egyptian people. This is something which there is nothing which can change this on the ground. But it's with our hand. It's a lot of homework and a lot of efforts should be done on the ground. Also, sir, you mentioned the irrigation issues, the water issues. You know, there was a very important meeting which took place yesterday between President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi and a number of top executives and the head of the Armed Forces Engineering Authority, for example, and they were speaking about many issues, including the protection of areas exposed to floods, and how we should even benefit from the stored water from these floods. I mean, we took into consideration every single drop of water and how we can use every drop of water, whether as potable water, whether for irrigation, whether for anything. I mean, we do not depend on one source, but to diversify our resources, even from the water side. How do you see the word diversifying resources in general? Water, energy, and this is another issue. Even when it comes to importing special goods, we should diversify our resources and not to depend on one source. Not only the West, but the East should be included. We do have very good relations with the EU, but also with Japan and China and Russia. How do you see this comprehensive organization or this comprehensive panoramic view of our political leadership regarding our economy and regarding our life?
That is, in a one word, it is the leadership of President Sisi. If you take a look for, let's talk about history. During Nasser regime, we are depending in the East regime, for example, Soviet Union and all Eastern company. With President Sadat came to power, it was relying more in Western hemisphere and forgetting about the Arab Union and so on. Later on with President Mubarak, it was a variety between Arab League and so on, and we forget about African. We are an African nation and so on. African continent, we are far away. With President Sisi, if you take a look for his visit for the last 8 years, he visited Europe, he visited Egypt, Asia several times, the States and all different Western countries. He was really playing a major role in Arab country with the unity of Arab country between Egypt, Bahrain, Jordan and Iraq and so on, and United Arab Emirates, Saudi Arabia. And also he focused mainly on investing in Africa. Africa is the backbone for Egyptian.
Our strategic depth.
Absolutely.
I'm always speaking about Africa as our strategic depth.
Let me say, Africa is a virgin continent, which really
till the moment,
until this point of time,
yes,
which it really used by European nation, by France, by United Kingdom and Italy and Portugal and so on. But right now, when we have a strategic cooperation between Egypt and many African nations, it gives us a leading role in developing, not only in Egypt, but in developing in
till the
Africa.
moment the African Union is implementing what Egypt wrote as if it is another charter for the EU when Egypt was chairing the African Union in 2019. Silencing the gun, security is number one. Developing infrastructure and full strategic partnership among African allies for the best interest of the African peoples.
Absolutely.
This is it. But you mentioned also another important point, which is the Arab cooperation. There are some very important, let me say, statements which were released recently, just 2 days ago, by Egypt Trade Minister urging more inter-Arab cooperation to face economic challenges. This was the main headline. How do you see this, and how do you see this, sir, as a must? I mean, it's not a luxury anymore. Now, this is a must. True? And if you please elaborate.
Let me say it in a very simple format. If Egypt is strong, the Arab nation is strong. If Egypt, remember, during 2011, what happened with Arab Spring, for example, if you take at where is Iraq right now, where is Syria right now, where is Yemen right now, where is Libya right now, and so on. But Egypt, for Egyptian people, and that is the Egyptian gene, it is very important. They try to play with deviation between Muslim and the Christian. It didn't work. They try to work with certain class against certain class. It doesn't work. Egyptian people, they stay together, they unite together to face any foreign intervention to Egypt. and that is Egypt. We don't have tribe. We don't have certain groups can control another group. When they started to do that in 2012, they absolutely failed.
We rejected them immediately.
And all
because
Egyptians
we are
rejected,
Copts.
absolutely.
We are Egyptians.
And that is Egyptian gene. It is really,
amen to that.
And President Sisi really focus on that. And remember, with Haya Karima, with all this
Dr.
social
Said, you are
program,
reading my mind.
I'm sorry.
You're reading my mind. You're really reading my mind, because my coming question was going to be about the social protection networks. But before going to this, because this is a very important file, which is a priority for our political leadership. But speaking about the inter-Arab cooperation, to what extent this is going to be one of the main issues which should be reflected on the ground because of the current challenges which are facing the region?
Remember, there is a huge investment for Arab nation here in Egypt. Number one is Saudi Arabia. Number two is United Arab Emirates. It has a huge investment in Egypt. Look behind you in Musallas Masbir, for example. It's a huge investment for Arab country come to invest in Egypt. Investing in Egypt is a huge opportunity for Arab investors. And of course, when we really should restructure our strategy. I always say we should build more factory than more. We should really go for the future, not consumption. And that is the major things we should work on for the next 2 years. We should build more factory. We should make a lot of strategic alliance with Arab country in terms of agriculture, in terms of industry, not only for Japanese or Chinese or Russian or American industry. They start to invest open factory here in Egypt. And with this strategic alliance with Arab country, it's a huge opportunity for Arab country as well for the Egyptian people. More people will be hired, more development, more quality life for Egyptian people. And Egypt also can be
the gate for Arab and Western countries for Africa.
Absolutely.
If they want to really invest in Africa in a way, Egypt can be the gate.
Absolutely.
And this is another issue which should be discussed or should be studied well to be another win-win situation between us and particularly with our Arab allies.
Absolutely.
Going to the social protection network, you know, in every time the president or the prime minister or any of the economic circle ministers speaking about a mega project or about SMEs, they speak also about Haya Karima, Decent Life Initiative, or the social protection network in general. And for example, the initiative of Kullina Wahid, or We Are All One, the 23rd phase, which was inaugurated just 2 days ago by the 1st of September ahead of the new academic year, with 17 outlets all over Egypt, with many even movable outlets for the best interest of the Egyptian citizens, with 30% discounts on stationery for the students and 60% on some food and non-food commodities. How do you see having this parallel with the other mega projects and new factories and all what we have spoken about in our first part of our episode?
Really, the government and President Sisi aware of social responsibility for Egyptian people, where he tried a couple of years ago, he focused on quality of life for Egyptian people, to let every Egyptian proud of being Egyptian, to carry Egyptian passport, to carry Egyptian flag and so on. With the Russian-Ukrainian war, with the COVID-19, the inflation rate worldwide increased, and the interest rate it doubled in many other countries and so on, and it affected our economical sector, by the way. In order to really subsidize the income for needy people, they built a lot of programs. As you mentioned, many social programs devoted for needy people. In recent days, a couple of days ago, they increased for every individual needy people to increase their income by 300 pound, which it is good enough in order to overcome the rate of inflation, which it happened worldwide.
Yeah.
And all of this program was housing, not only a public housing, but a public housing where it's like a compound, where you can have your schools, where you can have your church, your mosque, and all the needy stores in this complex, for example. And that is really for improving the quality of Egyptian people. Of course, investing in people, it is the most important things, where we call it as a human capital. If you improve the health, education of your people and the quality of life of your people, our productivity, it will increase, our life, it will be better in the future. So it's really it's a very important equation in order to balance between your economical development and your status, in order to make you happy and the quality of life improve for the Egyptian people.
And sir, if you permit me to talk also about smart cities, because in parallel or coinciding with all this, we do speak about the new administrative capital, new Mansoura city, new Alamein city, new Minya city, new Rafah city, new Asyut even. We are going to have many new cities scattered all over Egypt, and they are going all to be digitalized. Digital transformation is also one of the things which we are witnessing even on the ground. I mean, it's not a day long anymore, which you should spend in one of the documentation offices, for example, just to have a paper, just to have your ID, whatever. Digital transformation in Egypt and smart cities in Egypt are going also to be another leap or another feature of the new republic. Tell me more about this, and how do you see this on the ground? I mean, tangible on the ground.
It is the future, the new capital of Egypt, and many other new area in Mansoura, in Bani Suef, in Luxor, in Gina, in Asyut, in Sohag, in all Mansoura, Munufiyya, new city, for example. And all of that is really to expand the distribution of people for all of Egypt. Remember, 10 years ago or 12 years ago, we used to occupy only 7%
around the Nile.
Around the Nile. It is not so anymore. Remember, we are investing heavily in the promising land of Sinai, which is really, I believe, that is the future of Egypt in Sinai, where we start to have several industry there. We have in the agriculture base in Sinai, and that is by itself, when you expand your population all over Egypt, it is a good opportunity to increase our productivity and so on. I will tell you, in your house, in my house, we don't have a fiber optic internet. In Haya Karima, they have fiber optic internet, high-speed internet. They have it in Haya Karima, and that is a reality.
Yes.
I have a friend, he told me, when I want to do all my internet thing, I go to Haya Karima and sit over there beside the building, and the speed of internet is triple what we have here.
What we call
Cairo.
New Egypt. Well, Dr. Saeed Kholy, the former Dean of Faculty of Commerce, Ain Shams University, and our economics expert, thank you very much for your input, sir. You're always an added value to our programs.
You're very welcome, and time fly with you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Well, by this we come to the end of this episode of Money Means Business, but yet we are going to leave you with the most important news, economic news, of course, which took place in the last 7 days. Stay tuned. But we are going to leave you with a promise to see you again same time only on Nile TV International. Many thanks for watching. This was Nermeen Abdurrahman.